I'm a commuter. I start my day earlier than my fellow students and come home later than them. On Tuesdays, lectures last till sunset, at least during winter season. Being a commuter, you naturally gather a bunch of experiences with public transport, from major delays to cancellations and even unfriendly conductors. You will meet many things that may upset you after a hard day of work or uni. Nonetheless, this is not supposed to be a letter of complaint, but rather a tale of an odd encounter. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I'm thinking about it on a daily basis, trying to find something to finally soothe my mind. It's strange when you suddenly fall out of your routine and experience something that shouldn't exist. It happened on the very weekday that ends at 8 p.m. I sat in university and looked outside the large windows since the howling of a winter storm wouldn't stop bringing layers of glittering snow on the pavement. I began to worry. There was only one train I could catch to carry me home. Said vehicle departs at 8:15 p.m. My usual time walking to the station takes about 10 minutes, but now that chaos and cold reigned the streets, I knew that I had to hurry. Without saying goodbye to my fellow students, I rushed out of the auditorium the moment my professor closed his mouth. Every minute was important. On my way over the campus, I nearly rammed a student, and when I set foot outside, I was greeted by winter itself, throwing snow, ice, and sleet in my face. Biting cold devoured my body heat as I cleaved a path through the fresh powder snow. Sprinting like a madwoman, I felt my shoes giving in and my socks slowly getting wet. Irregular footprints showed how efficiently the weather slowed me down. I felt my breath becoming colder than it used to be on normal winter days. By then I had an uneasy sense of being late, and I was right. A short look at my watch revealed that I had no time left. So I ran faster, slipped on ice that was as smooth as glass, and got up again. Even though I jumped up the stairs to the platform, I was too late. The conductor's whistle shrilled through the night, the door shut with a bang, and the engine started moving the train. I let out a loud shit and sat down on a bench nearby. Catching my breath again, I looked around. I was completely alone. There was no soul to see, not a single living being, only the stinging wind in me. My tired eyes caught sight of the scoreboard. The next train was scheduled in 50 minutes, and it wouldn't even drive to my town. A sigh escaped my coolish lips as I reached for my mobile phone. I pondered who to call to give me a lift. My parents, friends, or maybe my sister? I didn't actually decide since a headlamp caught my attention. It was coming from something that moved towards me on the same tracks I just missed my last ticket home. It was a bright light from afar, making the snowflakes shimmer in the darkness. Slowly, as if it was in no hurry, it came nearer, demasking its mysterious origin. I made out a train cab and glimpsed a shadowy figure, probably operating the vehicle. Then the whole train arrived at the station and stopped in front of me. I checked the scoreboard again, thinking there might have been a sudden change. 45 minutes until the next train. Once again I looked around to see if there were any other passengers waiting. Still, it couldn't be helped. I was alone. With their usual sound, the doors opened. I waited for people to exit the train, but nobody got out. In fact, I couldn't even see one person inside. The train's lights were on, but there was no trace of potential passengers. Confused, I decided to head to the driver's cab. I was hesitant to knock the outside doors at first, but to my surprise, no one answered. So I looked through the windows and learned that it was just as empty as the rest of the train. The driver must have left into one of the passenger cars, I mumbled to myself, trying to calm me down a little bit. Unfortunately, my nervousness only increased when I couldn't find him anywhere. To be honest, I didn't enter the train. It obviously creeped me out. A lot. Therefore, there was no way he could have left the train without me noticing it. My body started shaking. I didn't know whether it was caused by the bitter, cold night or the fact that an abandoned, fully lit train opened its doors for me at a lonely station. My conclusion was that I should get home as soon as possible. For some reason, I couldn't get my eyes off the strange train. I went back to the bench and got out my phone. The moment I heard the first dial tone, I nearly dropped my backpack. The doors closed again, the train moved, and on top of it, the lights went out. Even the headlamp disappeared along with the train into the night's body. Dad's voice snapped me out of my shocked status. After a short explanation of what has been happening, he was worried and got to the station as quickly as possible to pick his daughter up. I was certainly relieved when his car turned up and stopped in front of my pale, shivering body. That night I slept at my parents' place. Well, I tried to fall asleep, which finally happened after a 3-hour-long struggle against fear. As soon as sleep numbed my scattered mind, a picture of the empty train turned my dreams into nightmares. Although there was nothing particularly horrifying about it, it made me feel helpless and lost. The train emitted an atmosphere that seemed to attract my consciousness. The next day, I approached a middle-aged railway official right before lectures started. He assured me that no train has been on the tracks near my station during 8:15 and 9:05 p.m. Naturally, this made me even more worried. He laughed it off and called me a prankster who's trying to scare him. This person seemed nervous about my question, though, so I asked him if there was something wrong. The man's face suddenly changed to a concerned expression. He looked me over, leaned forward, and whispered, "So, you're serious about this?" I nodded since I had a lump in my throat. He shook his head like he was in disbelief, but then continued, "See, no one here wants to work at night times." He looked at the other counters next to him with his coworkers talking to customers. They say this station was the last place a man named Wallace L. Gimbert had been seen. He lived in the 19th century, don't remember when exactly. Was a kind-hearted railroad engineer loved by passengers. Rumors tell his whistle also had a unique sound. He stopped and tried to fake a smile. I couldn't believe this was the sole reason why nobody wanted to work until or during graveyard shift. That's all? Nah, but let me get this straight. I've got work to do and can't waste my time on crazy urban legends. My boss wouldn't appreciate that. I'll help you with tickets, schedules, or other train-related business, though. I said goodbye, thanked him with a sick feeling in my stomach, and went to university. Studying and my fellow students distracted me from my last night experience. I told no one. They shouldn't think that I believe in a legend that's been passed around for 200 years. I forgot about it throughout the day, but as soon as I was alone again, an eerie state of solitude cornered me. Nothing unordinary happened the remaining week, except bad dreams about the same picture over and over. Me standing in front of what looked like an invitation to a lonely ride into darkness. I caught every train, and the nightmares became less towards the weekend when I wouldn't use public transport. My dad called it off as a creation of my imagination due to no sleep and a hard day of studying combined with harsh weather. I wanted to believe him. Monday came and went as usual. Oddly enough, I slept like a baby, cuddled into my warm and cozy bed that night. Tuesday morning I was refreshed and gave off a healthy vibe. I had a great day at university and finally got a hang of a complicated series of lectures. Hoping I had a lucky day, my eyes glared at the windows during the last lecture. Nature crushed my hopes in the form of an angry snowstorm which was probably even more rude than a week ago. "This time I'll do it," murmured through my head. Like a raving loony, I jumped into the snow and stomped my way through the elements barricade. I ran, I stumbled, I panted, but without success. With hurting throat and sides, I arrived the moment the train departed. Alarmed, I looked about. Cold sweat ran down my forehead when I realized I was totally alone again. Not even the cats I heard fighting seconds ago remained at the station. The scoreboard said the same as last week, 50 minutes until the next train arrival. My stomach began to feel funny. To be more precise, my whole body reacted to the situation. It sent cold shivers up and down my spine. My heart began to race, and thoughts telling me to call Dad or to leave shouted in my head. I felt dizzy and got on my knees with my bare hands touching the salt-snow-slush mix on the platform. Then it happened. Like a huge yellow eye, the train's headlamp spotted my cowering self and crawled towards me. I felt like defeated prey, ready to be eaten as the light grew brighter and the train opened its big mouth-like doors once again before me. I wished that I was dreaming. I prayed to wake up and bit my tongue in order to escape back into my bed, but nothing happened. The uncanny vehicle was still in front of me. Shaking, I built myself up again. The freezing wind played with my hair as I stood in the middle of loneliness, facing the manifestation of my nightmares. The urge to vomit climbed its way up my gullet. The dizziness increased as I nearly collapsed. I strived after collapsing just to get out of the situation. Wallace Gimbert, I recalled the legend's protagonist. Suddenly, prickling pierced the darkened thoughts of fear and misery. My brain seemed to brighten up. Saying his name worked like a command. I'm not sure how long I fought with myself not to enter the train, but I couldn't resist an unknown will to finally take a step forward. So I did. I obeyed and got inside. The warmness of the heated passenger car welcomed me as the doors closed behind. The tension inside my body cooled down. Breath after breath, I got more relaxed. I turned around and looked outside. My pupils widened as a man's silhouette put a whistle in his mouth. A high-pitched, yet soft sound penetrated my ears. A unique sound, my lips stated on their own. Smoothly, the train set itself in motion. I expected the lights to turn off, but fortunately it didn't happen, so I decided to take a seat. On my way into the cabin, my nose took note of many smells. I smelled bourgeois perfume, leather, wood, and sweat. For a moment I blamed it on my bizarre situation and therefore oversensitive senses, but as I looked outside the window at my seat, my hair stood on end. It's hard to describe. I try to forget about it. I try to erase it from my memory. The light caused a reflection in the window, a reflection that showed people sitting on the empty seats. People dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Men wearing top hats and tailcoats, women wearing fancy dresses. I leapt to my feet. My heart sank into my boots as I looked at the real seats. The passenger car was empty. Nobody has been here except me. I turned to the window again. The reflections disappeared. So did the smells. At this point, I questioned my state of mind. I threw myself into the seat's cushion and waited until my legs stopped trembling. Desperately, I started laughing and determined what to do next. Breaking the glass to get out of this freak show or pay a visit to the driver. I favored the latter and walked through the cabins until I reached the end of the train, the driver's cab. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Of course, I knew it. Why should it be different? What was I expecting? The cab was unmanned. No person operated the cockpit. Speechless, I placed my exhausted body on the free seat and buried my face in my hands. Tears ran down my wrists and dropped on my shoes. After some minutes of sobbing, I noticed something carved next to buttons on the console. It read, WLG. Reading his initials gave me hope. I smiled and suddenly felt a hand on my shoulder. Obviously, no one had been found, but I stood up and let an apparent ghost sit down. I watched as the joystick moved by its own and the train got faster. I saw buttons being pressed and heard a silent farewell just as I closed my eyes for a second to wipe away the tears with my sweater. "Why are you crying, miss? Is something wrong? Can I help you?" I stood on a crowded platform. An old lady gave me a concerned look. "I'm okay, thanks." I tried to make out where I was. I realized I was at my home station. Excited, I turned around to see if I could take a last look at Gimbert's train. Shocked, I noticed that it was a different type of vehicle. It was filled with many people, modern, clothed people. I know this sounds odd, but did I just get out of that train? Of course you did. You stepped out crying. Are you sure you're all right? Yes, I am. I felt up my shoulder as I sat down at a bench to recall everything that had happened. I brooded over every detail and watched the station. The train I supposedly arrived with, meanwhile, has left the platform and made place for something which left me even more puzzled. The 8:15 train I missed opened its doors for the passengers.